Hi, everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today I'm talking about the movie Lisa Frankenstein. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie yet and you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. So Lisa Frankenstein is a modern day retelling of the classic Frankenstein story, set in the 1980s, 1989, I believe. A young woman accidentally or a dead body is reincarnated and she develops a relationship with it. So, as far as what I liked about the movie, overall, I liked the cast. Kathryn Newton, I thought was great as Lisa Swallows. I know her pretty much just from Ant-Man Quantumania. I know she was in some other stuff like Three Billboards Over uh, Ebbings, Montana, whatever, Billy, whatever it was, and some other stuff. But yeah, I mostly just know her from that. Cole Sprouse, of course, he was the little kid from Big Daddy. But I think he also played Jughead on Riverside, Riverdale. He was good in this as the creature. You know, he doesn't really talk much, but he did a pretty good job with what he had. I really like Liza Soberano as Taffy, the stepsister. She does a voice on the show Tresse, which someone else had recommended to me recently, so I'll need to check that out. But yeah, I really liked her character a lot. Henry Eikenberry as Michael was great too. Like a young Brad Pitt, very good looking guy. I like Joe Chrest as Dale Swallows. He's been in a bunch of stuff, but I know him mostly from Stranger Things. And of course, Carla Gugino is always great as the stepmom. She's in that House of Usher show that I haven't watched yet, but I hear is good and I need to check it out. But she's also in Sin City, and first thing I saw her in was Son-in-Law, the Pauly Shore movie. So yeah, she's great in this. She's great in everything. I really like the opening sequence. They do this kind of animated title sequence. It's very like kind of Edward Gorey style, or almost like cutout picture style, and then also there's a lot of George Millet kind of stuff in there with like the rocket going into the moon and all that. And actually, George Millet comes up quite a bit. She's even got her closet. It's got that rocket on the moon thing, and they even do another little animated sequence kind of toward the end of the movie. I enjoyed it. I really liked the style of that. I thought it was really cool. I really liked the humor in it throughout. There's a lot of really funny jokes that had me laughing out loud a lot. One of the one that I remember that stuck with me is they just cut to the stepsister Taffy, and she's like finishing up a story, which I always like that bit when it's like you're just hearing the end of the story, and you're like, what the hell? And she's like, and that's why Mr. Anderson has to teach with the door open now, and everyone laughs, and he's like, oh, that was a good story. And you're like, what was that story? I saw it with a friend, and she like turned and looked at me like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, that was pretty funny. And there's a lot of other funny, like kind of one-liners in there. And Diablo Cody's got a really good, she wrote this, has got a really good ear for dialogue. And yeah, it comes up with some kind of clever turns of phrase that I appreciated. I really liked there's some really interesting shot choices. Like right after the opening title sequence, there's this kind of title sequence, I guess. They kind of do a little animated thing, and then there's the actual like title in the cemetery. But like there's a cool kind of overhead shot, and the way the camera moves is pretty interesting. And like there's a very distinctive style to it. There's some like Dutch angles in here, not too much. It's not like crazy Kenneth Branagh like going all over the place, but like enough to really show some definite kind of style. And to show that I didn't know much about Zelda Williams before this, other than the fact she's Robin Williams' daughter. But like, yeah, it convinced me enough to be like, yeah, she knows what she's doing behind the camera here for sure. Some cool like shot choices and stuff too. I like the setting overall. I just the 1980s is always a fun time for me. I was young in the 80s, but I was around, so I remember it, and I love the music from the 80s. I really like the set design in this and the costume design, and I think, like I said before, the music is probably my favorite part of the movie. It's got a great soundtrack. They've got "The Promise" by When in Rome, which is I think used in the marketing a bit. And of course, that was in Napoleon Dynamite, but still a great song. Lips Like Sugar by Echo and the Bunnymen shows up. Head On by Jesus and Mary Chain. I love that song. They do the UK surf version of Wave of Mutilation by Pixies, which was used in Pump Up the Volume. So a lot of cool stuff like that. I actually prefer the original version of that, but either way, great song. Honestly, one of the best soundtracks. I love 80s music, and they did a good job too of not picking like the stuff that you always hear all the time. Like The Wedding Singer had a great 80s soundtrack too, but like this one, didn't play the same songs they had. So I appreciated that. I really like the sister stepsister relationship. I like that she was, a little bit of a mean girl. She was kind of the popular girl, her Taffy, but it wasn't like over the top, and it wasn't intentional, and it wasn't like malicious in any way. And she actually seemed like she cared about her and wanted to like help her out and everything. And I appreciated that. And I really liked the other cheerleaders and stuff too. I really just the way they played it, I think was well done, and not too mean spirited, but just funny. I really thought the first half of the movie overall was like pretty great. I really, really enjoyed it. I was like, oh my God, and I can't believe I was going to skip this movie. But I'm like, wow, I'm glad I went to see this. This is really fun. And I think the movie has a good chance of being like a cult classic. I can imagine, especially in 5 or 10 years, 15 years, this being a group of people who really love this movie, especially, kind of goth high schoolers and stuff. Definitely, definitely. So yeah, I really enjoyed that. As far as what I disliked about it, God, there's a singing scene where Kathryn Newton's character, what is it, Lisa, starts singing. Oh God, what is it? I can't fight this feeling, and it is terrible. I don't. I assume it's supposed to be terrible because it's really bad. Like she's adding in extra notes and stuff, and she like can't really sing, and I'm like, what? What is this? Why are they? It's like this is supposed to be. This isn't supposed to be good, is it? Like I don't know. I was waiting for like the zombie just to rip his ear off because it was so bad. I was like, oh, this is. It was even worse than the Hunger Games thing with the yeah, it was bad. Just it really like I want to take an entire point away from this movie just for how bad that scene was. And then later they do play the song "Can't Fight This Film," but they played the JoJo version of it for some reason instead of the REO Speedwagon version. I thought maybe it was like a rights issue; they couldn't get the rights to it or something. But Zelda Williams directed a bunch of JoJo music videos, so I assume they're friends or something. So maybe that was it. But yeah, I didn't like that version at all. I thought it was terrible. I mean, granted, this is the first time I heard it, so maybe if I heard it again, I would like it more. I'm just used to the original, but when I'm hearing, it, I'm like, oh God, I have to hear another terribly sung version of this song. I already had it once. Now you're doing it twice. Like, come on. At least play the original for me so I can remember that it's not a bad song. I like it. But I don't know. Either way, all the stuff with the tanning bed was pretty stupid. Like I get what they were going for, the electricity and Frankenstein and all that. But like, I don't know, it's a little too lazy. Like it reminded me a little bit of like the Totally Killer, where it's like, oh, I built a time machine. Oh, you did? Yeah, I'm smart. I've been in advanced math class or whatever, science class. I can build time machines. Okay. Whereas, like, I don't know, at least like in Back to the Future, I believe that Doc Brown could build a time machine from a DeLorean. I don't know why. It's ridiculous. He's got a Mr. Coffee on top of it, but like, I don't know, maybe just because um, Christopher Lloyd's a little bit more convincing of an actor than whoever. Either way, I just thought this tanning bed stuff was a little silly. It's like, was it some magical tanning bed that like yeah, I don't know. I wish they could have done something a little bit better with that. I think the pacing in this is a little off because it's very slow in the beginning. Like it takes a long time to finally get to the plot of the movie, which is that this, zombie dude comes back to life and develops this relationship with this girl. And I'm like, okay, I know where this is going. I know where this is going. Like, can we get to that point already? Like, what's taking so long? And then, like, once we get to that point, all of a sudden, then stuff starts happening very quickly. Like, now all of a sudden, like, they're in bed together and they're using the massage wand, and then, they're killing people and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, wow, this just the escalation of events is not happening really at the rate that it should be. So I definitely felt it was a little slow in the beginning and then a little too rushed in the middle there. And looking back, I don't know that the mother murder stuff was really necessary, other than to have the stepsister or whatever. But like, I was waiting for that to come back around, for that to somehow be connected to what was going on. And again, Totally Killer kind of did a similar thing. But no, it just seemed like, I guess her mom being murdered is what made her like goth or whatever. But like, I don't know if that's usually how it works. Like, I knew a lot of goth people. I was vaguely gothish myself, and most of us weren't exposed to trauma early on. And most people I know who were exposed to trauma early on were not goth at all. They were just weird. I don't know. They had other stuff going on. They weren't concerned about listening to The Cure or wearing, makeup or whatever as much. So I don't know. Some of the jokes just really didn't land for me. I don't remember particularly, but there were definitely a couple of cringy ones where like they were trying to do like a clever play on words, and I'm like, really? Was that like a first draft joke? You couldn't come up with anything better than that? That was really what you went with there. Like, and okay, I mean, you can just cut the joke if it doesn't work. You don't have to put it in there. And I mean, of course, it's very subjective. Some people might think it was funny, and sometimes there is something to be said for that awkward kind of making a bad joke that doesn't work being funny. But I don't know. For me, a good number of the jokes didn't work. Yeah, about half of them did, about half of them didn't, I guess. It's very predictable. Like in some ways, as soon as Taffy's got the little hickey on her neck, it's like, oh, well, clearly she was making out with the guy that Lisa likes. And, yeah, and that's of course exactly what happened. The mom character, Carla Gugino, is great, but a little over the top. I would have appreciated maybe a little more nuance with that. Maybe she wasn't just so obviously a terrible person, maybe, or even if she was a terrible person, but she didn't seem as bad. Like she seemed nicer to other people, and so like, she was a little more manipulative as opposed to just being an obvious sociopath. Um, I also thought that the crush guy, I think Michael was his name, is just too good looking. I'm like, that guy looks like a young Brad Pitt. Like, no. And they're like, oh, he's a nerdy guy and he works for the school. No, he doesn't. Shut up. He doesn't play any sports. Yes, he does. What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Come on now. And I also thought the ending was just a little stupid. You know, it's just one as you're watching the movie going, okay, how are they going to, they've set up this, how is this going to resolve? What's going to happen here? And so, okay, they put her in the tanning bed, they crank it all the way up, she dies. But he knows how to reanimate her body now, and he eventually is able to now talk. But okay, fine, I get where you're doing that symbolically or from a story perspective, but like, why would you burn her body? That's the dumbest way to kill somebody. You suffocate her, find some other way to do it that's not going to, you know, make her body all marred and disgusting and have to, you know, I don't know, just it seemed like they didn't really think that out this whole murder thing. So yeah, other than that, movie is directed by Zelda Williams. She's directed a bunch of JoJo or 3 or 4 JoJo music videos, a short movie about 45 minutes long called Kappa Kappa Die. This is her directorial debut. Like I said, she is the daughter of Robin Williams, the comedian and actor. It's written by Diablo Cody, who wrote Juno. I believe she won an Oscar for Juno, and also Jennifer's Body and Young Adult, some other stuff as well. I feel like Diablo Cody is interesting because, yeah, Juno was a big deal. She won the Oscar. Everyone was like, oh my God. And then Jennifer's Body was a big failure and nobody liked it. And it was a critical and box office failure. And then she kind of came back a little with Young Adult. I think it was the same director, Jason Reitman, from Juno. And she had some other stuff. She did another one with Charlize Theron that I always confuse with Young Adult because it looks very, very similar. But I feel like in a lot of ways, for me, the script, there's some strong points in the script, some very funny points, but it was also kind of the weak point in the movie. I feel like maybe they would have benefited from having a second screenwriter in here who could kind of, I don't know, keep the plot going or make a little bit more sense. But hey, what do I know? She's got an Oscar. I don't. Rotten Tomatoes on this one's kind of interesting. It's one of those where the critics are at 49%. So, you know, most of them, or about half of them, didn't like it. But the audience is at 82%, which makes sense because the audience who's going to see this movie are going to be people who are more likely to want to like this kind of movie. You know what I mean? So I understand that. But yeah, I can definitely see there being a big disconnect here between the two. Budget on this one was $13 million, so relatively low. It's made about 3.8 million so far. I mean, $26 million is what it needs to break even, maybe even less, because I don't know what they paid for marketing on this. It's not the kind of movie that a studio really puts out in the hopes of making a lot of money or anything like that. So sure, it'll be fine. Apparently, this is set in the same universe as Jennifer's Body. Only because Diablo Cody said that in an interview recently. She said there's no obvious clues to it or anything. Like, oh, did I miss something? No, she just said that. And apparently she wants to remake Jennifer's Body. So, okay, I guess. I don't remember that movie being very good, but interesting enough premise, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a Megan Fox fan, I think is the issue. So I'm like, all right. And this movie reminded me of a few other movies. Like I said, totally killer in some ways because of the 80s setting and the kind of murder comedy type stuff. Warm Bodies is a pretty obvious one that a lot of people have compared it to, which people seem to like. I don't know if I ever saw Warm Bodies. I don't remember. I remember seeing commercials and trailers for it, being like, okay, that could be okay, but just I don't think I ever saw it. And it reminds me a little bit of a movie called My Boyfriend's Back from like the mid 90s that Bob Balaban directed. So as far as my score on this one, though, I think it was okay. I really liked the first half, and I was like ready to be like, "Hey, I love this movie," but it just kind of really fell apart about halfway through for me, just story wise, I guess. So I think we give it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was okay, but not great. Amazing soundtrack, some really interesting directorial choices. I'm curious to see where Zelda Williams goes from here. But yeah, not my favorite movie by any means. So 7 out of 10, that's my score. But if you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night, and I will see you here again next week.